The situation has finally reached breaking point at Red Bull. Christian Horner has been shown the door after 2 decades at the helm of the team, ending a career that spans 2 periods of Formula One supremacy, but also the most spectacular collapse ever seen in the sport. The question that remains is, does this change really solve Red Bull's dilemmas, or does it simply reveal more clearly the structural crisis facing the organization? And above all, what will be the next step? Let's start with the obvious. The strategy that Red Bull presented to Thai investors, that team members were interchangeable and that Horner was the secret to success, simply lost credibility in 2025. The data is relentless and reveals the truth. In 2023, Red Bull won every race except one. Currently, during the 2025 season, both world championships are virtually unattainable and the campaign can be considered over. This demonstrates McLaren's evolution, but simultaneously exposes Red Bull's devastating deterioration. This decline has complex characteristics that go beyond what is initially apparent. The refinement of the RB21 appears to have reached a dead end. Even while maintaining speed, the car only operates within extremely limited parameters. Red Bull has been unable to expand these parameters without compromising maximum performance, while McLaren has achieved precisely this goal. From an operational standpoint, the situation has also deteriorated significantly. Red Bull has accumulated several mistakes in the pits since Jonathan Wheatley's departure, particularly evident in Miami and Bahrain. The Bahrain Grand Prix represented the team's most critical moment this season, especially from an operational perspective. The emergency meeting after that stage already signaled future developments, with dissatisfaction simmering behind the scenes. The strategy has also failed to reach the level Red Bull has previously demonstrated, as evidenced by the decision to use hard tires in Barcelona. But wait, because the issue is even broader than it appears. The complexity and extent of the dilemmas indicate that 2025 is beyond recovery. Red Bull will implement another package of improvements before the summer break, but as team advisor Helmut Marko has already acknowledged, they will not transform the season. Whether Laurent Mekies or Horner is in charge, the outcome would likely be the same. More significantly, there is no immediate solution. The dilemmas are structural, and rebuilding will take time. Paradoxically, Horner himself acknowledged this during what became his last FIA press conference as Red Bull team principal. I remember Dietrich Mateschitz telling me at the time, "We don't need the best driver if we don't have the best car." At that point, it was about building a team. Situations follow cycles, and sport follows cycles. We had 2 extraordinarily successful cycles in Formula One, and what we want to do is build for the next cycle. This is precisely where Red Bull finds itself today, except that now this rebuilding process will take place without Horner. The foundation for a new era rests on 4 elements: the internal engine design, the technical team, the team culture, and driver development. But in 2025, the situation differs slightly from what Mateschitz mentioned 20 years ago. At that time, Red Bull needed to prove that it could build a competitive car. Hiring Adrian Newey was more crucial than hiring a top driver. Today, Red Bull already has a top driver, and the team has become extremely dependent on him in recent years. If Tsunoda's points since joining the main team were doubled for 2 cars, Red Bull would be in last place in the Constructors' Championship. The implications of losing Verstappen would go far beyond simply replacing a driver. He is the only one who consistently extracts performance from the current car, meaning that the team and technical philosophy would need to be overhauled without him. This is not because the car is designed exclusively for him, but rather due to a self-reinforcing cycle. Verstappen is the only Red Bull driver who delivers on the track, so the team needs to maximize his opportunities by listening to his feedback. Naturally, the car evolves, which in turn makes it even more challenging for any teammate to succeed. This makes Verstappen the only driver to deliver on the track, and then the cycle starts again. If Verstappen were to leave, Red Bull would need to partially reinvent its philosophy. At least the new rules require this new philosophy for 2026 anyway. The second seat remains a dilemma as well. Red Bull's leadership now recognizes that the problem is mainly related to the car, with Marko making some interesting comments after Alex Dunn's free practice session with McLaren. And it doesn't end there. The in-house engine project with Ford is a key part of Red Bull's future. Mark Rushbrook, Global Director of Ford Performance, stated that Red Bull powertrains and Ford were achieving most of the milestones, but acknowledged that it is impossible for a newcomer to achieve all of them immediately. In his latest press conference, Horner echoed that sentiment, saying it would be embarrassing for Mercedes if Red Bull were ahead of them. That's partly expectation management, as Red Bull emphasized that guiding principle during a factory tour as well. We want to promise less and deliver more. At the same time, beating manufacturers with decades of experience right away is highly unlikely. Red Bull has described its engine project as a long-term investment. During the difficulties with Renault, Red Bull still had a very competitive chassis and aerodynamic package. But now that is also an unknown. Since Miami 2024, Red Bull has been struggling, and the technical team has not found a way to turn this around. The new leadership must ask, is this due to outdated tools or people leaving? The latter is not just about Adrian Newey, but perhaps even more so about former engineering chief Rob Marshall. Asked if Marshall was now making a difference at McLaren, Verstappen replied, "I think that's pretty clear." Still, Horner repeatedly insisted that there was strength and depth in the team. Fundamentally, it's the same group of people who designed a car that won every race but won just 18 months ago. Those people didn't become idiots overnight. Indeed, Red Bull still has key figures such as Technical Director Pierre Wash, Performance Engineering Chief Ben Waterhouse, and Chief Engineer Paul Monaghan. But without Newey, whom Wash described as someone who constantly challenged the technical team, they have something to prove in 2026. The team often points to its outdated wind tunnel as the main limitation. That makes 2026 an interesting test. Horner has repeatedly explained that the wind tunnel becomes more of a limiting factor under stable regulations, where margins are thinner. With a clean slate, he believes the disadvantage will be less for the first big steps in 2026. But if Red Bull still underperforms then, that could be an indication. A new wind tunnel is scheduled to come online in 2026, but it will have more effect on the 2027 car. It is too late to affect the next regulation change. All of this puts Red Bull in a transition phase. Success in 2025 is out of reach, except for the occasional victory, and 2026 depends mainly on the engine design. Mekies is unlikely to immediately impact performance on the track, but that does not mean that the timing of his appointment is meaningless. This phase is critical, just as it was for McLaren when they began rebuilding after hitting rock bottom. Now is the time for Red Bull to learn and look ahead. They must examine the technical issues since Miami and, more importantly, learn from them. Team culture also matters. Internal power struggles have not done the team any favors, meaning Red Bull needs unity and stability. That is arguably Meki's biggest job in the coming months. Not instant success, but creating calm within the team and laying the foundation for future success. As Horner said, this is the time for Red Bull to build towards a potential third winning era. This must happen without him, and critically, whether Verstappen will be part of that rebuilding process remains to be seen. Red Bull is at a crossroads. The problems are deep, complex, and have no quick fix. Horner's dismissal may be the beginning of a new era, but it may also be just the first of many painful moves the team will have to make. What do you think? Can Red Bull reinvent itself once again? Or is this really the fall of a giant? Leave your opinion in the comments and click on the video appearing on your screen, because there I'll tell you how this other bombshell in Formula 1 could change everything behind the scenes for the team's next season.